The thesis of this video is that we already had a sort of badly broken culture of constructive criticism in the Western world before the internet was invented. And then with the advent of the internet, that culture got worse. Now, sometimes on this channel, I talk about the contrast between constructive criticism and destructive criticism. We're trained primarily in the school system, especially in the higher levels of the university school system, as I'll explain in a moment. We're trained to regard constructive criticism positively and destructive criticism negatively. That's actually not the topic of this video, so I'm just going to explain this very briefly. Destructive criticism might be that I say to a colleague at work, look, you can't do the math. I've seen your equations. I've seen the work you're doing on paper. I've seen what you're doing with this computer program. I've seen you working through these numbers. You can't do the math. We have to find someone else to do the math. Like, whether it's me or not. And, in relation to a university education program, I may know someone and I may know them well enough. I've seen their work in mathematics. I say to them, look, you can't complete this university program. You can't major in this. You have to find a new major. You have to find a new career path, what have you. You have to reevaluate your goals and strategies because you can't do the math. That's not constructive criticism. I'm not offering to help this person. I'm not offering to tutor this person, right? There's nothing constructive about it. It's not saying, hey, you're doing these equations wrong. Here's the way to do them correctly. Like, here's how to improve how you're doing these equations. It's a blunt, jarring statement. You can't do the math, whether it's in a professional context, which is we're doing this job together on a project, or a more academic and scholarly project. Very often, the single most important message someone has to hear is, you can't do the math. Now, again, I could expand on this topic at great length with many examples throughout my life. I have been in the room with many different people from many walks of life who were struggling to learn Chinese as a language. I could also say I've been in the room with people who were struggling to read Buddhist philosophy, which is something they were partly doing in English and then partly doing through other languages like Pali, Sanskrit, languages from India. I have been in a position to say to someone, look, you have precisely the type of talent necessary to do very well with Chinese, right? Like I notice you're good at this, you're good at this, right? Like I can break that down component by component. I have also been in a position to tell someone, you do not have the talent, you do not have the skills, you're really bad at this. And the point is ultimately, maybe there's something else you should be studying or doing. Like you don't have what it takes for Chinese specifically. Now, if you guys don't know, Chinese is very different from learning Spanish. Chinese is very different from learning Arabic, really any other language in the world. Again, this may be destructive criticism, not constructive criticism, and it may save someone's life. Letting someone know this doctor can't perform this surgery, letting someone know you cannot perform this surgery, that directly saves someone's life in a more abstract and indirect way, right? Letting someone know you are not the dude to handle this math, to do these equations. You are not the dude to learn Chinese. It's tremendously important. And it's not just undervalued in our society, it's taboo. Right? Now, there's a separate question here. Again, I'm only at this point describing to you what this video is not about. Maybe we'll get some interesting questions or reflections on it from the audience. In telling somebody what they cannot do, what they are not skilled at, what they don't have the current capability for, there is a separate question of, is this something they could learn in future? Is it something they could become capable of? It's very different on a case-by-case basis. As a very young man, as a teenager, I wanted to have a career in economics. If this is your first time watching a YouTube video on this channel, you may be surprised. But for many of you, it'd be very obvious why I would want to work in economics. My interest in politics, history, everything else. It's all linked to economics. And I still to this day find economics fascinating, just at a kind of parlor room level of conversation, analysis, and discussion. And I'm very frustrated at the low level of quality of economic analysis I get from mainstream media, news, newspapers, even specialized publications like The Economist. So anyway, I'm someone who is at a better than high school level of understanding of economics, but it did not become my career. And I remember saying to my parents directly, because I had this self-knowledge. Nobody else had told me this. I said to my parents, I can't do the math. Like, I need help. If I'm going to remain enrolled in these economics courses, if I'm going to be an economics major, I need help because my high school didn't teach me this stuff. Like, I did not learn this in high school. And now here I am at a university level. And in order to be on the same level as the other students, I need help. Now, my parents were psychotic assholes. My parents were really genuinely insane. Topic for another video. Their particular form of insanity on this issue, in this case, many of you may be able to relate to. Some of you, 10% of you, 20% of you, will have parents who thought in this kind of way. What my mother thought it was appropriate to do was say, oh, just make it up as you go along. Just fake your way through it. And, you can have a career not so much as an economist, not as someone who does the math. You can be more of an economics educator, like a popularizer of economics. The same way there's like a difference between a scientist, someone who popularizes science, and you'll just kind of cover up the fact that you never had this fundamental competence of being able to do the mathematical equations. Now I'm smiling and laughing about it. I deeply hate my mother for this. I deeply resent this. This is a major source of resentment, regret, and conflict between us to this day. And if I talk to my mother tomorrow, I may talk to her about this. I mean, I've talked to her about it in the past. I could talk to her about it again next week or next month. It is the sort of thing that still comes up, where it's like, look, I could have had a career in economics, and you failed to do exactly what you needed to do at steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to make that possible for me. The point is this. Whatever age I was at the time, I don't know if it was this conversation, am I 17 years old? But I'm a teenager. I could not simply take myself to the library and find the books I needed. Someone else could have done that for me. Someone else could have put the book in my hand and said, this is exactly the book that will help you catch up in math. And obviously, my parents could have hired a tutor. Compared to the price of the actual university classes, the cost of a tutor is next to nothing. They could have found someone to help me. Right now, obviously, you can go back over many years talking about all the positive things they could have done. That was not their attitude. And my father, famously, and my mother said this also, my father's favorite thing to say to me was, just fail. Just fail the class. That solves the problem. I am not joking. Both my father and my mother, I can remember specific classes, this was their advice, was just fail. So is it any wonder I couldn't get ahead in economics? Now, again, there were other kids in the classroom studying economics, and, their father and maybe their older brother sat with them and directly tutored them and showed them how to do the equation because they have a father or an older brother who studied in that field. This was most obviously the case with a lot of the Asian students. A lot of the Asian students that came from a family where the whole family sees it as their enterprise working together to help that child really develop a high level of competence in math and, to be blunt, in making money. For a lot of these people, economics is the science of how to get rich. For me, it's the science of poverty. I was not interested in economics in order to become a wealthy person myself. I had my own, political, historical, scholarly, and humanitarian interest. I dare not say altruistic interest, but I had my own reasons for studying economics that had nothing to do with making money. Okay, so that's a case in which it isn't someone else offering the destructive criticism. It's me. I know I can't do it, right? And this is my point for my reason for explaining this situation like this. I can't offer that constructive criticism to myself, right? I can't say, oh, here's the problem and here's how to solve it. Here's what you should do better, right? I need my parents to hire a tutor, or I need my parents to be wise enough themselves to tutor me. I need someone else to take me and show me the book, right? This is a difference between different fields. Like even language learning, I have a stack of books here on how to teach yourself Latin. I have a stack of books on how to teach yourself Spanish. That's pretty easy to figure out. I mean, some people are idiots. Some people can fuck it up. But like resources for language learning, it's not that hard to figure out what's a good book and what's not. I've especially with something that's as heavily researched, as heavily published on as ancient Latin or modern Spanish, plenty of resources. And even if the first book you buy turns out to be bad, you can find another one. But to really understand, like, so you can't just walk up to the math shelf in the library and figure out which math book you need. To really understand what are the equations, what is the type of math, and then how do I learn that? How do I practice that sitting alone at my desk, right? I can't do it alone. I need someone to help me. So this is my point. When I say to someone else, and I've been in this position, you can't do the math, that's different from the judgment of you will never be able to do the math, right? A lot of the time, not always, a lot of the time, the judgment is, look, if you took a couple of years, let's say 2 years, and you got this book and this tutor, and let's just say you have a full-time job, but for a couple of years, for 2 hours a day, every day, you study and practice doing this math. 2 years is a long time. 2 hours a day for 2 years doing math, you could have this down cold. Who's you? Maybe you could, but not you. You could master these mathematical equations, but not you. And trust me, with Chinese, yeah, you can do this 2 hours a day for 2 years, not you. Like, some people do not have what it takes for each one of these fields. And I only mentioned it very briefly, but the reading of Buddhist philosophy, wow, some people can never do this. You know, like my coaching them, like if I try to coach them and help them and instruct them, they'll just become like my cult follower. They won't ever learn to do the thinking for themselves. They won't learn to do the reasoning for themselves. Great to have 30 people here on a Sunday, by the way. Hit the thumbs up button. We should have 30 thumbs up. We have 30 people. Oh, Michael Scott asks a great question, but I'm going to start weeping on camera if we get into this. Michael asks, what kind of terrible economics class was this? Normally the teacher would teach this or offer help. Whoo! You want to see a grown man cry? You want me to talk about my education economics? 3-hour live stream. My experience with high school and university education and economics. 3 hours, 1 hour of it weeping on camera. Yeah, I get. Well, you know, read my books, Michael. You know, my critique of university education is very sincere. I mean, it's not. Some people might think that what I have to say about university education in my books is exaggerated for dramatic effect. No, I mean it's there's no exaggeration. My experience with university education really is that bad, and getting into high school education is even worse. Okay, so look, there are some topics that have never been discussed on this YouTube channel because they were an important part of my life before I had a YouTube channel. So what I want to talk about in this video, it's actually something I discussed a lot with my ex-wife, which is my first wife. It was a big part of our lives together in that period. And, you know, many, many years ago, I was kind of bored of talking about it or thinking about it by the time I here's a hilarious comment to derail me. Harold Finch, I hope you're joking. Harold Finch says, Cosmic Skeptic just announced that he's no longer vegan. Well, there's a great topic for a video, but not the video I'm making today. Thanks, Harold. If you're joking, it's a great joke. If you're just trying to derail the video, you succeeded in derailing my train of thought. But if you're not joking, of course, I'm interested, and I'll make a YouTube video about it soon enough. But yeah, obviously, Cosmic Skeptic is my bête noire. If you search for the name Cosmic Skeptic on this channel, I think I have a playlist. I have many, many videos criticizing and disagreeing with them and condemning them. But alas, that's a topic for another time. So back when I was with my ex-wife, I want you to visualize this. I am not here engaging in a stereotype about the academic character. I'm not here engaging in a stereotype about the type of person who gets a PhD. I'm talking about real people with real face, real particular people I knew, and it adds up to more than 100 people. So I'm generalizing about real people. I'm not trading in stereotypes here. When I first got together with my ex-wife, she was flabbergasted again and again. She was shocked and astonished again and again to find that she would have some kind of meeting, some kind of round table, some kind of conference, and people would show up just to offer constructive criticism, not to help, not to contribute, not to do anything, not to solve any problem in any way. And now, this really directly reflects the training they had in the British system of education and in the French system of education. Some of these people were out of a French background. My ex-wife herself comes out of a French background. But, so for example, she has a proposal to have an academic conference or to collect a bunch of essays and publish it as a book or something like this, publish it as an issue of a journal. So you're wanting to bring people together to discuss this conference and then to contribute and actually organize and actually write a chapter for this book or whatever. Okay, and these are all people who should be capable of that. And so this is an example, but it's an example that's indicative of many, many different situations and scenarios that she went through before she was with me and a little bit while we were together as a couple too. And people would show up just to eat your food and drink your coffee, drink whatever beverages you had on offer, and sit there and criticize the shit out of your proposal to offer so-called constructive criticism of what you were doing. And, if you don't know career academics, some of this stuff could be really getting into the weeds. Like it really could be you want to have a conference about communism and they want to sit there and for half an hour talk about your use of gendered pronouns in the proposal. That's not an example my ex-wife actually dealt with, or not to my knowledge. But like it really could be something irrelevant. Like it's constructive criticism, but like, okay, I want to sit here and talk for half an hour about the ethics of anonymity in anthropology and whether or not all of the conference papers should anonymize all of the examples and case studies. So like, instead of saying, I did this research, I talked to a guy named Jim in Africa, where you're forcing people to say, I talked to a guy in a country. Like, how anonymous should this be to protect the people who are the subjects of your research? So this isn't like, okay, so thanks. You've come to this meeting and you've now wasted 30 minutes of an hour, maybe an hour and a half of my time, like jousting with your own obsessions and criticizing my work. And then when it comes time for these people to actually do something, they're actually astonished that you're asking, oh, no, I just showed up to criticize. They just showed up to offer constructive criticism. Now, in this academic setting, you're talking about people who have literally been trained and rewarded to do this, right? Like they have sometimes been graded on coming to class, coming to a roundtable discussion, however it's described, and sitting down. They've read one piece of paper, or maybe they've pretended they've read a whole book, but they haven't really. They've read one piece of paper, and sitting there for 2 hours and trying to impress the professor by the supposed methodological sophistication of the constructive criticism they offer. Like some of these are people who've practiced doing that, and they've been graded on doing that again and again and again for years. Now, I've already kind of indicated what I think is the deeper problem here. I mean, okay, so Brenda, I'll talk to you about this one second. The shallow problem is none of these people actually want to do anything. They don't want to actually work. They don't want to help. They don't want to produce anything. They don't want to make anything. And in many cases, they don't know how to. I'm going to say a little bit more about that. Okay. And that is the stereotype about career academics, about people with PhDs. And that stereotype exists for a reason, even if it's a little bit unfair. There is a bit of a profounder problem, though, which is this way of thinking about constructive criticism as being good in itself, right? Before the advent of the internet, it's already a huge problem. Now the internet has made it much, much worse. Suppose I'm making a movie and it's just me. It's me as I actually am. It's not some hypothetical other person. I have very little, technical expertise in how to make a movie. And you show up on the set. You show up, you're there standing next to the camera. And you say, the way you've got the lighting set up, it doesn't frame the actor's face at all. Like in real Hollywood movies, the jawline is very clear and the expressions are very sharp because they do the lighting in this special way that frames the face. And then I turn to you and say, oh, great, you do it. Let's see. Okay, why don't you set up the lights? Let's see what you do. And then you say, no, I'm just offering constructive criticism. You see the problem? This is the first problem. We have a second problem that's even deeper and further reaching. All right. We had a society even prior to the internet where people were really trained and encouraged to think that this is something positive. And it's not. It's something negative, right? Now, the fact that you don't know how to do that, the fact that you don't know how to set up the lighting in that way, right? It may also indicate that your criticism is not well informed enough, that you're not even it's not just that you can't help or you won't help, but maybe you are not the person to offer that critique. Now, coming back to the university setting for one sec, but I think all of you in your own lives can imagine this easily enough. Whatever line of work you're in, whatever level of education you may be at. People in this culture, because they regard constructive criticism as something good in itself, they don't reflect on and evaluate who they are and on what basis they're offering the criticism. And in reality, the number of people who really have the requisite experience to offer constructive criticism, as opposed to destructive criticism, which we've already described, it's very, very small. So when I first arrived at Cambridge University, England, so I was a Canadian citizen getting married to a French citizen, but this French citizen was in England as a university student, right? I'm looking to get a job. And one of the first jobs I applied for, I think this might have been the first job I applied for, they told me, as I recall, they told me through email before the job interview, oh, we're sure we can hire you, no problem. We already have one Canadian working here. We worked out his paperwork and it's fine. So that job, it's a very humble job. Based on the job description, I believed I'd be taking care of physically disabled people. I believed it would be blind people and deaf people, or people who were partly blind and partly deaf. So I showed up and did the job interview and I found out more what the job really was. But prima facie, at first glance, job helping the blind and the deaf, and maybe some people in wheelchairs, but that didn't seem to be what it was describing. Didn't seem to describe that kind of simple physical disability. I was like, okay, great. This is a part-time job I can take on here in England. They want to hire me. They say they can hire a Canadian. This began a long recurring sequence of people telling me, oh, I'm certain you can have the legal right to work here. I'm certain the paperwork is no problem because I have a friend who's Canadian. And he got the paperwork done, right? So I went and did the job interview. And they actually gave me the email for the Canadian guy. They knew, oh, here, talk to this guy. He was a current employee. We hired him. He's Canadian. He worked out the paperwork to be allowed to work legally in the United Kingdom. So again, I'm just mentioning, I wasn't married to a British person. I was married to a French person who had the legal right to be there as a student. And, the first guy I talked to, right away, he just says, Oh yeah, they call me Canadian, like the employers. They refer to him as Canadian because he speaks English with a Canadian accent, but actually he has a British passport. Like he's born a citizen of England, whatever the circumstances were. I assume his family raised him in Canada for a couple of years and came back. Because I don't know, I just don't care. He was like, yeah. They call me. They think I'm Canadian. They refer to me as Canadian, like culturally or something. He's Canadian, but no. But he's a British citizen. He has the right to work there because like legally he's English. And again, every single time someone would say, "Oh, I know someone in your situation. I'll put you in touch with them." Or like it was someone else in the room. Oh, here, talk to. Oh, I'm sure that's no problem because this guy managed it. Then you talk to the guy. Something like, you're telling me this guy's Canadian, but he's Irish. You're telling me this guy's Canadian, but he's been married to an English person for 20 years and they have 2 kids together. And like each person was a different story. The point is, with this issue, so this is visa laws and regulations in England. It's very easy to think you have the knowledge, you have the experience to offer constructive criticism, but you are not in that person's precise situation. Your experience is just irrelevant enough that your constructive criticism doesn't help. It is, in fact, bullshit, or it makes it worse for this person to hear it. Now, I'll give you an example. Okay, I've written and published a book recently. Someone in the audience can say, when do I stop calling it recently? I think it's more than 6 months ago now. Okay, I wrote and published a book. Now, I am not close friends with Cosmic Skeptic. As has come up today already. What if Cosmic Skeptic had taken me aside and said in a friendly way, "Hey, I hear you're publishing a book about veganism. I can help. I can offer you constructive criticism because I've published a book myself." Right? Isn't there a subtle but important sense in which his advice is going to be at best laughable? Right? It's going to be irrelevant. And no matter how constructive his criticism is, it's actually worse than what I've already termed destructive criticism. Now, there are 2 reasons for this. One is just directly parallel to what I said about visa regulations, passports, the right to get a job, and so on. That kind of bureaucratic reality, which is just one reason it's a problem, is just irrelevance. What if Earthling Ed took me aside to give me advice on how to write my book or how to publish my book? So I've taken a look at Earthling Ed's book. It's appallingly poorly written. It's incredibly bad, the quality of writing. I also think the quality of the content is very stupid. How about Carol Adams? Carol Adams is a published author. What if she takes me aside and she's giving me advice on how to revise my manuscript, how to edit or improve my writing? Okay, I think Carol Adams is an imbecile. She's published many books. She's a successful published author. Do you think Carol Adams, or do you think Earthling Ed, or do you think Cosmic Skeptic, do you think any of those people are in a position to take me aside and say, "Hey, they are a successful published author. They know how to publish a book. They even specifically know how to publish a successful book about vegan politics. Therefore, they are in a position to offer me constructive criticism about the writing of my book and about the actual publication of my book." Isn't it remarkable? They're not. Okay? And this is interesting. To come back to the example I used before, what if you were on the movie set with me and I'm struggling? I'm a self-taught filmmaker. I've never been to film school. I have no formal training. And you make this comment that the lighting isn't right. And I think, oh, great. Like I'm just optimistic. I think, oh, great. You know how to do the lighting. Oh, great. Like just based on that comment, you say, hey, the lighting isn't framing his face right. I say, okay, great. Show me how it's done. Maybe it's going to be bad, maybe not, but I want you to step up and move the lighting around to show me how you would like this person. I want to see. Oh, wow, great. Okay, so you're someone who has some concept of what professional lighting in a movie is. Okay, great. Show me how it's done. Imagine how disastrous the result would be if you had that attitude towards Carol Adams, toward Earthling Ed or toward Cosmic Skeptic, if these people are looking at the rough draft for my book, they're looking at the unfinished manuscript, and they have suggestions for how this should be written and ultimately how this should be published, how this should be made successful. And I say to them, oh, great. Why don't you show me how it's done? So some of you have read my book, some of you haven't. It's just inconvenient for me to grab my book. It's just off camera. Can you imagine no more manifestos as rewritten by Earthling Ed, as revised by Cosmic Skeptic, right? Like, think about Cosmic Skeptic's agenda. He seems to be so we're mentioning some other people, unnatural vegan and so on. Like, someone like Cosmic Skeptic, he's actively trying to reach out to a popular audience that I'm not trying to reach out to. Someone like an audience at a much lower intellectual level than me. Unnatural vegan is the same, most of these people. Earthling Ed, he's preaching to the converted in a way that I'm not. They have different agendas and different character traits. And by the way, some of these character traits have made them successful. I would be the first person to say, Joey Carbstrong is more successful than I am, not despite his stupidity, because of his stupidity. People like Joey Carbstrong because he's stupid. People like James Aspey because he's stupid. Like, the defect is the feature. The bug is the feature. Its weakness is its strength. Like, don't confuse strength for weakness and weakness for strength. But, so they might rewrite or revise what I'm saying in order to reach an audience I am not trying to reach, right? Now, this is one of many, many ways in which it would be absurd. I think all of the people I've just mentioned, I'm a better writer than, just period. But can you imagine, some of you may not know Carol Adams. Search my channel for the name Carol Adams. There's a video you will laugh your ass off within the first 2 minutes. If you just search for the name Carol Adams within my channel, woo! I have one video. Actually, Cosmic Skeptic is in that video now that I think about it. Very briefly, but he was in the room with Carol Adams when she made that presentation. Anyway, this would be ridiculous. Okay. But there's a further step into absurdity here. Okay. And it is as follows. If you are on the film set with me and you have this idea of what is good lighting, how to have the lighting set up to frame the hero's face in a movie, right? And you may have this idea correctly from watching Hollywood movies. Exactly the criteria I mentioned. You're supposed to see the chin clearly. There's certain things you're supposed to see. Certain kind of contrast between the back of the head and the background. There's certain things that are supposed to be sharp when you're lighting someone's face in a professional Hollywood movie. Okay, so maybe you have the concept of this, but you can't actually do it, right? You can't actually help me. You can't even explain it, right? So I just asked a question. Your constructive criticism, is it really constructive? And are you the person to offer? Right. But that is a static and unchanging ideal. That ideal doesn't change for 100 years. Like, what is good lighting? Like, certain features of cinema that are competent, that define competence as opposed to incompetence, they don't change in 100 years. It's a static ideal. What I'm doing in writing my book is something that has never been done before. Now, sorry, you had a mention here. So by the way, this is part of nihilism. I criticize my own position. I criticize my own position in part to point out the limitations of what I'm saying. Like, what I'm saying is true, but only within limits. 47 people in the audience. We should have 47 thumbs up. Even if you hate the video, give it a thumbs up so more people can enjoy hating it along with you, okay? All right. So I used to work in book publishing. I have direct experience in the real world for-profit book publishing industry. And I remember discussing this with my boss. I don't remember discussing this with clients, with writers and other people in the industry. But, at any given moment, and this changes within 5 years or within 10 years, it changes every couple of years. In any given moment, there were a set of completely arbitrary expectations for the formatting in science textbooks. So I'm giving that as an example, but it's true about expensive textbooks everywhere. There is this assumption, if you are going to charge $300 for a science textbook, because they are really, really expensive, science, medicine, many of these things, a university textbook, here are the assumptions for how the numbers should be set up in columns. Here's the assumptions for the page layout, right? like, it's not something real. It's just a kind of industry standard. And if you don't hire an expert to do the page layout that way and give it that look, give it the aesthetic quality of a $300 textbook, everyone in the industry is going to look and go, are you kidding? This is not, they're going to look at it and say, this is not a $300 science textbook. And that really literally comes down to things like the font and the margins. And it's really ridiculous. And I just mentioned, it doesn't stay the same. It actually changes within a few years. So like that's as a counterexample, right? If I want to publish a textbook that's going to sell at those prices for that market, right? This is something technical I don't know. And I gotta pay a consultant or an expert. There are people who just work in text layout, whatever. I gotta pay someone to do that for me or do that with me or talk me through what it is. And it's ridiculous, but that's the way the world works. It's a very specific market within book publishing. There's an established expectation for what a $300 university textbook in the sciences looks like. And you have to meet that expectation to charge that price, right? So this is the limit. This is a limitation for my argument. But what I am doing in chapter fucking 1 of my book, what I am doing in chapter 1 of Future of an Illusion is something that has never been done before. I'm seeing something that Earthling Ed has never heard before, that Carol Adams has never heard before, has never said, has never imagined. I'm challenging my audience with something genuinely, shockingly new. And there are people who watch my channel for years. There are people who watch my channel for 5 years, and they still say, God damn. Like the first chapter, some people say the first 3 chapters of Future of an Illusion, none of them used the term that their mind was blown. They just said, wow. Like I sat there at my keyboard thinking, holy shit. These are thoughts that were unthinkable before I made them thinkable. And they are indeed. They're things that have never been said on this YouTube channel. Now, my point is this. There isn't a preconceived ideal or aesthetic for that to fit into, because it's something genuinely original and genuinely new and genuinely innovative. Now, people in cinema delude themselves about that all the time, right? There are people in cinema who are making documentary films today, and they will say, oh, no, you can't tell me what a documentary film needs to look like in order to be played on HBO, in order to be played on Netflix. No, because what I'm doing is so innovative and so new that your expectations don't apply to me. And it's bullshit. Okay, if you want to make a documentary that looks like an experimental art film, guess who the fuck is going to play that film and who's going to watch that film? Okay, good luck playing your, edgy, experimental, innovative documentary in Prague at the fucking annual, Prague Experimental Film Festival. Okay, fuck you. If you want to make a documentary film, if you want to make an educational film, these are the standards you have to live up to. Hopefully you exceed them. And then once you meet those standards, there's some room for innovation, there's some room for something new, but there is a pre-established standard, there's a pre-established aesthetic for you to fit into, for you to satisfy, for you to exceed. So again, you see, I'm criticizing my own position here. The idea of doing something new, of novelty, of innovation, of taking on something new, saying something that hasn't been said before, of creativity as such. Creativity cannot be a pretext for dismissing those other concerns. But this is, again, a very important limitation on what constructive criticism is and what it can be. Like how any of you can help me through constructive criticism. Now, by the way, this is not a major source of conflict with my audience. It's a minor source of conflict with my audience. Of the people here, 99% of you, I think, have never offered me constructive criticism. It's rare that people do. I'm going to give you a couple examples, though. This first one you might have heard before. I think I mentioned this in one other video. So my rent here in Canada to live in this splendor is about $2,000 a month. If you're thinking in US dollars, That would be probably $2,000 a month, including my electricity in US dollars, because there's a gap right now between US and Canadian. So including electricity and internet bill, I think 2,000 US dollars is a good estimate. Back when I lived in Taiwan, my rent was dramatically less. So I honestly don't remember. Maybe it was $200, maybe it was $250 in Taiwan. I got an email from someone offering constructive criticism. Right? And he wrote in, and I'm sorry, I haven't looked up this email, but it's burned into my memory. I'm certain if I look it up, this paraphrase will be painfully accurate. He said, "Hey, look, I really appreciate your channel. I'm really a big fan. I'm really a big supporter. But, you have these advertisements that interrupt the video, and it really ruins the flow of listening to your argument, listening to your philosophy. And, it's not just that it impairs my enjoyment of your videos. I really think it's impairing the future growth potential of your channel. I don't think you can reach new audiences because these advertisements." And he said some other things that were really well-intentioned, like it seemed to be positive, it seemed to be, as I say, constructive criticism. I said, okay, so here's the situation. At that time, this was true. It's like, okay, I literally rely on the money from these advertisements to pay my rent. Okay? Literally. So yes, I'm one mouse click away. I can click through, if you guys don't know this on YouTube, I can disable advertising for the whole YouTube channel. Okay? And at that time, I knew the exact number, but let's say it was, look, I'm making $400 a month from the advertising channel. Right now, it's definitely less than that. I could look up. I'm just being honest. I don't know if I make $100 a month right now from the advertising. I was making more money from advertising that time because I made more videos reaching out to a wider audience. So talk about a constructive criticism. Sam, I assume Sam is still here. I think Sam has said on the record he does not like my videos about Onision. So criticizing other YouTube channels like Onision. Guess what literally paid my rent in Taiwan, Sam? So that's exactly that period. I was making videos talking about Onision. I still think they're meaningful videos. But they're not as deep as my videos about Aristotle, they're not as deep as my videos about the history of the American Constitution, right? But, yes, at that time, I was making more money through YouTube because I was actively creating videos that reach out to a larger audience and new viewers who don't already know my channel and significance, okay? So I believe from memory, let's say I was making $400 a month at that time. I said, okay, look, so let's put together a solution here. Okay, I understand your criticism. Obviously, I'm not going to say you're wrong. No, here's a form of constructive criticism. I'm not saying the guy is wrong. Okay, so we have a problem. The videos are interrupted by advertisements. Okay, $400 a month. So all it would take would be 4 wealthy viewers of this channel. And maybe you are one of them. Maybe you, the guy writing to me at that time. What if there are 4 viewers of the channel and they commit to donate $100 each per month? So, even though there's the potential for my advertising revenue to grow, it's like at that time, it's $400 a month. And we just say, okay, if I get a commitment from 4 people, they each donate. If you're a wealthy person, $100 a month is nothing. There are a lot of hobbies. If you are a wealthy person, you spend $100 every time you go to a restaurant. So that's like going to the restaurant once a month. And if you are a wealthy person who values my YouTube channel, it's not unreasonable. It's okay. So we could organize 4 people. Each one donates $100 a month. And then we cancel all the advertising on my YouTube channel. Now, I am not saying that this person should have just immediately agreed and offered the money. But I said further, look, if you don't like this idea, okay, so talk it through with me. What's your suggestion? How do you think my YouTube channel can exist and I can put in this level of effort while getting no revenue, getting no income at all from advertising? What's your suggestion? And again, I forgot, I said a few more words, but to me, there's a weird kind of hubris. If you send an email to the New York Times and say, hey, I enjoy reading your newspaper, but I just think it's ruined by these advertisements. Like you have these big advertisements and it's really crass and like the reading experience. I really think the New York Times, I think this newspaper or this magazine, I think it's going to reach a larger audience. I think it's really holding you back having this advertising. Do you know how much money the New York Times makes out of advertising per month? Like, what do you think the substitute is here? Like, it's just, there's this weird kind of presumption. Now, in my case, the advertising is so little money that you see what I'm saying? We can actually talk this through. And again, you guys can guess because we've been, you know the theme of this whole video. You can imagine how this person writes back to me. Nope, there's absolutely no there's nothing constructive. There's no help. The person just immediately shrugs his shoulders and says, yeah, well, I don't know, kind of go fuck yourself. They just want this for free, like period. Like that's all it boils down to. They're not willing to even talk about this or think about this with me. Like, well, what do you think the future of content creation is? Like for me to make $0 a month instead of $400 a month? When for me, I've just told you at that time, that's literally how I pay my rent, is with those $400 a month. That's your constructive criticism? And then the minute it's pointed out to you what the consequences are, you want nothing to do with it, you're gone. Now, again, for some of you, it'll be hard to see how this is the same problem I was describing or alluding to with my ex-wife being at Cambridge and being at Oxford, being in these elite university scenarios. And it's like, hey, I'm trying to do something positive here. I'm trying to organize a conference. I'm trying to publish a book. I'm trying to maybe edit a bunch of articles to be a special issue of a journal. And like, remember, it's like I'm trying to create opportunities for you. Because if you are an ambitious career academic, you need to write and publish articles. You need to present them at colloquia. You need to attend these kinds of conferences. Okay, and I'm trying to do this, and ultimately it costs money, and ultimately no one is paying me a salary. I'm doing this on a volunteer basis. I'm taking on this leadership role. And now the question is, what are you going to do for me? And the answer is nothing. The answer is you came here to take and take and take and take and never to give, right? Not even intellectually. Like not even on the level of the discussion of ideas, not even on the level of research or writing, right? Or editing or arranging a publisher. Again, coming back to book publishing, right? Okay, guys, I'm going to take a second to pay attention to your comments. Obviously, we have an emergency because it's been established that Cosmic Skeptic is no longer vegan. If you have anything intelligent to say, now's a good time to say it. If you want to hit the thumbs up button, now's a good time to hit it. Yeah. So, Stupid Vegan World says, quote, advertisements help the algorithm apparently. My original reason for adding advertising to the channel when I first did that, it was that fear. It was that concern. So, right. Okay. Obviously we got to come back to YouTube here in a big way. This issue of indicate repeatedly, are you the person to offer me constructive criticism? I pointed this out to people again and again and again. When I started the YouTube channel, I got constructive criticism from Aaron Janis. Now, today, I know Aaron Janis is completely insane. If you search my YouTube channel or you just search YouTube in general, I made one video called The Politics of Being Aaron Janis. It's actually not on à-bas-le-ciel. It's on another channel. But you can see exactly how insane Aaron Janis is. This is so many years ago. I didn't know she was insane. When Aaron Janis sent me constructive criticism, I took it seriously. I thought, okay, this is someone who is highly accomplished and highly distinguished in her field. She is successful on YouTube. So when she gives me constructive criticism, I'm going to listen. I'm going to do it. And I did. I'll come back to what the changes were I made. Other people told me what to change about my channel all the fucking time. And you know what I said to them back then? So this is like 8 years ago now. My YouTube channel has been up for 9 years, guys. I'm 9 years deep in this. But 8 years ago, I said, you know what? When I get advice from Aaron Janis, I listen. When I get advice from you, I ask, what experience and what expertise do you have in this field? Holy shit. The culture we already had before the internet of so-called constructive criticism, it has become so fucking toxic, so counterproductive, so abusive in the era of the internet. And it's like, dude, you think you're an expert on how to succeed on YouTube, and you know less than nothing. Like, what you know is worse than nothing. It's like talking to someone who's a fucking communist, and it's not that they know nothing, they know propaganda that's actually untrue. Like, they're ignorant of the facts, but they do have knowledge. They have knowledge of lies. They have knowledge of propaganda. They have knowledge of propaganda that was created to conceal the facts. So what they know is not nothing. It's worse than nothing. Like, oh yeah, great, bro. Why don't you give me your advice on how to succeed on YouTube? Now, this is in some ways parallel to, and in some ways not parallel to, what I was just saying about book writing, revising, editing, and publishing a book. Like, is it possible for Earthling Ed to really give me advice and help on my book? Well, part of the answer is no, because it's my book. Part of the answer is no, because it's innovative. Part of the answer is no, because Earthling Ed is a fucking moron compared to me. He's actually a worse writer than me. So on and so forth, okay? But like, when you're looking at something as esoteric as YouTube, and YouTube is in many ways esoteric. Let me say this. There is absolutely no way you can look at my YouTube channel as a case study and then look at the Amazing Atheists YouTube channel as a case study and say, Eisel, clearly you should imitate what the Amazing Atheist is doing right. There's no way you can say to me, hey, Eisel, look at the really high quality editing the Amazing Atheist has. I mean, it's just not true. Look at the high quality like intro and outro graphics. Look at the high quality sound and music. Look at the high quality makeup and lighting. No, none of those factors explain the success of the Amazing Atheist. And again, there are many ways in which the comparison is ridiculous because we're not even trying to get the same audience and so on, but nevertheless. Now, what I just said about the Amazing Atheist, we could repeat it about a bunch of smaller atheist YouTubers, a bunch of smaller political YouTubers, a bunch of smaller vegan YouTubers. But let's go big. Go big or go home. Do you think the success of Joe Rogan on YouTube is because of the quality of his fucking editing? Do you think Joe Rogan videos are well edited? Do you think they have great lighting? Do they have great sound? No. Like Joe Rogan's podcast and his YouTube videos that spun off from the podcast, they just look normal. They just look okay. They just look nondescript. I can literally say if I had one person actually in this apartment as my guest and then one other person working the cameras, I would have the same video quality as Joe Rogan. I honestly, the camera I'm using right now, I don't think it's any worse than the video quality you get from Joe Rogan. This is quite an expensive camera. Unlike cameras I used in the past. If I had two of these cameras set up and we cut back and forth between them and it's two guys sitting at a desk talking, there's no real aesthetic difference in the filmmaking, right? You know, now, dude, that is exactly what you get in terms of so-called constructive criticism. Now, okay, here's the thing. I've already set up a bit of an excuse here. I've said YouTube is esoteric. So again, this is branching off from comment from the audience. Stupid Vegan World said, advertisements help the algorithm, apparently. That was one of the things Erin Janis said to me. She said, look, I understand you don't want to have advertising on your channel, but you have to, because only when you have advertisements in your channel will YouTube promote your videos, because that's when YouTube makes money out of your videos. I don't think it's true at all. And again, this stuff is really esoteric. Like, how do you find out what you have insider knowledge? How do you know that's true? It's a story people have made up in their own head. And I could now talk for an hour about like esoteric inside baseball shit, all kinds of things that YouTubers are like certain about that are really profoundly uncertain. And yeah, there are people in there to tell you. But anyway, that's actually an example of something where it's like Erin Janis says this to me. It's like, okay, Erin Janis at that time, she was one of the most successful people in the field, one of the most successful who have ever done it. And it's like, okay, Erin, I take your advice seriously. I'm going to change what I'm doing. And there was a whole list of things I changed directly in response to what Erin told me. None of it worked. I later learned Aaron is completely insane. But all these other people who either had like zero success on YouTube or just people in the audience who never had a YouTube channel, know nothing about it, do you have any fucking idea how many of those people have stepped up with constructive criticism that I utterly despise? And that's way worse than Aaron Janice's. And that in terms of its line of reasoning is way more insane. Because it's literally shit like, oh, you should set up the camera like Joe Rogan. Then you'd be more successful. Like, it's not the camera angle, guys. Are you fucking kidding me? Or, like, oh, the amazing atheist is more successful than you because he gets more angry on camera and swears a lot. Like, yeah, okay, you want me to be even more angry than I am? No, I mean, there are lots of angry people on YouTube who are unsuccessful. What, do you think the amazing atheist is successful because he's fat and I'm thin? Like, well, where are you going with this? There's all this genuinely spurious constructive criticism you get. And I do think the fundamental problem is our culture of constructive criticism itself. I am not asking you for constructive criticism. Do you want to know why? Because you have no experience in book publishing. Okay? If there is someone in this audience who has experience, here's a very specific example, illustrating and publishing children's storybooks, I'm willing to listen. Right? Now, maybe your experience isn't that relevant to my children's storybook because the children's storybook I'm doing is, I see. Sorry, I got a warning from the computer that's irrelevant to what I'm doing. Okay, maybe the advice you're going to give me is irrelevant because the type of children's storybook you do is more like the Walt Disney Company. It's for a mass market. Maybe it's because the type of children's storybook you do is a more narrow and inflexible market. I remember hearing a detailed news report about Orthodox Jewish children's storybooks. I think you can imagine there are a lot of people who are Orthodox Jewish and they only want to buy storybooks that have a certain type of message by a certain type of author to brainwash their kids in this religion, basically. Okay, but you can imagine someone who understands the Disney market and someone who understands the Orthodox Jewish market and how the illustration and publishing goes, they may not understand what it is I'm trying to do in children's book publishing. But nevertheless, if you have that expertise, if you have that experience, I'm willing to listen to you. I'm willing to talk to you. But even so, pretty quickly, we are going to come to the end of what constructive criticism can do for me, for us. At some point, I've got to ask you to actually help. So it's now been several months since I made the YouTube video, A Desperate Cry for Help. And I'm still out here asking for help. And I've just got to reiterate, help is not criticism. I'm not asking for your constructive criticism. And I'm generalizing about a pretty small number of people here. There are only so many hundred of you in this audience. Like, even if this video gets seen by 1,000 people, probably only a maximum of 500 of you are really members of my long-term audience. You'd be surprised, my videos, how many new people see them. It is surprising. But I'm talking here about a maximum of 500 people at this moment, okay? I don't think any of you have any expertise, any knowledge, any real-world experience that actually makes you capable of offering constructive criticism about how my YouTube videos are edited, how my YouTube videos are lit, or something. Okay. But let's just say that you did. Let's say hypothetically, there's one person in this fucking audience right now who's a professional film and video editor. Why aren't you offering to do the fucking editing for me? Why don't you show me how it's done? If you are really better at this than me, really, and you can prove it, obviously, I can send you, you can download one of my videos that's already up and you can re-edit it and show what a difference for the better editing you're doing. But you can prove it to me. I can send you unedited video and you can produce an edited version. This myth that like the difference between me and Jacqueline Glenn or me and the Amazing Atheist or me and Joe Rogan is the quality of editing. I don't believe it at all. It's just laughable to me. But if you believe it, if you think my YouTube channel is going to reach a larger audience when it has better editing, why don't you fucking step up and show me what that better editing looks like, right? I'm calling your bluff. I'm calling your bullshit. You're not going to explain to me what better editing is. You are going to fucking show me if you know how to do it. Now, again, guys, think about the fucking books here, right? I was asking for help, right? Like, again, I'm actually trying to publish a book. In other cases, I'm trying to get it illustrated and published, trying to work with an illustrator. Whatever the case may be, it's different for each book. But like, even with a project like that, right? Fuck your constructive criticism. What the fuck do you know? I want help. I want you to help me. And one of the interesting things about help is that, in a sense, anybody can do it. Constructive criticism relies on a really high level of erudition and prior experience with the particular thing you're offering criticism on, right? And actually helping, the bar is quite a bit lower. Kind of almost, I mean, if you're a complete idiot, you can't help, but almost anyone can help. And we'll come back to that. But like right now, I'm asking the question, should I move to Barcelona? Should I live the rest of my life in Spain? A lot of you have been to Barcelona. A lot of you have spent a few weeks in Spain. A lot of you can help me just talking to me about life in Spain. All kinds of people in this audience. Let's say you had a job in Spain for 3 months. Well, some of you for 3 years. You could really help me by talking to me about what life is like in Spain. Like, okay, my point is that's help. It's not constructive criticism. It's not criticism, period. And, maybe that's going to lead to me deciding I don't want to live in Spain. Like, okay, wow, you've told me some things about Spain that really make me see it's a terrible option. But again, like I've really been very emotionally transparent. I've been emotionally forthcoming in really showing you I am desperate for help. I'm begging for help, right? And it's funny because a lot of what I get instead is constructive criticism. Now, I can ask you a question. Here's a pop quiz. Have I coughed once during this video? I think this might be the first fucking YouTube video, the first live stream in which I didn't break down coughing in the middle of now 1 full hour. Okay. I have been struggling with coronavirus since I was in Thailand. I've been really, really sick. Now, I did get an abusive message 2-3 days ago, a couple days ago. I got someone insulting me saying, look, like you haven't gone back to the gym and you haven't accomplished this, and that, like within the last couple of months. So if you look at my Instagram, you can see I very rapidly got up to 300 push-ups a day. I got much more muscle on me. The reason I stopped working out of the gym was that coronavirus. Just my breathing was bad, and it got much colder here in Canada too. This thing called winter. And these things, it's just an intellectual decision. Like, okay, look, I'm not going to push my body that way right now because I'm really sick. I don't know. Today might be the first fucking day of my recovery, or maybe it's an illusion, and tomorrow I'm going to be sick again. But yeah, there are like some of these things. Like someone sends me an abusive message saying I'm not reaching my goals at the gym, and I'm not reaching my goals in terms of language study, and I'm not reaching my goals in terms of career. Yeah, no shit. I'm asking for help. I'm not asking for constructive criticism. Right now, Melissa is in Spain and I'm not. Why do you think Melissa is in Spain and I'm not? Because I was too sick. I was too ill to leave Canada and go to Spain. Well, there are some other reasons, but why it worked out that way. But I have really been too sick to go anywhere and do anything. And like, again, maybe today is the start of a more positive period that way. Maybe not. Maybe my health collapses again tonight or tomorrow or something. But I've really been struggling with just my physical health. So again, I'm just saying this is just an example. Like, well, constructive criticism is irrelevant. Like, yeah, guess what? I know how to work hard, but sometimes I can't. You know what I mean? And by the way, a lot of these things, most of what I want to do in my life relies on other people to help me. I can't study Chinese alone. I need to work with at least one other person. Do you want to help me learn Chinese? Like, again, I'm already at a certain level in Chinese. To move up to a higher level, are you going to help? Who? Am I going to have a circle of 5 people who care about Chinese as a language, Chinese history, Chinese politics? Are we going to do a podcast together? Imagine that, me with 4 other people sitting at a round table doing a podcast on Chinese politics, and I make studying Chinese as a language the main thing of my life. Just saying, this is one example where I need other people to help me, right? Again, what if it's Spanish? What if I become based in Spain? So on and so forth. Okay, this is a whole different route in life. What if it's filmmaking? What if it's comedy and stand-up comedy, right? And, again, like these are really tough decisions with really difficult long-term implications. But I'm at a stage in my life, I'm in my mid 40s. I can't do any of this stuff alone. I can't take the risks now and only find out later that I'm completely fucking alone. There isn't one other person to fucking help me. Right? I already did that with like Cambodia, Laos, Pali, Korea, and Ojibwe. There were a whole bunch of things where I took the gambit of just saying, okay, I'm going to be brilliant and talented and hardworking. And then I'm going to find out the hard way how many other brilliant, talented, hardworking people are in this field who will be my colleagues or be my friends or work with me. Yeah. How have you heard of vegan activism? That was basically what I did. And I ended up completely alone. I can't be hardworking for you. I can't be brilliant for you. I can't be talented for you. I can't be ethical for you. All I can do is demonstrate what I've got to give. And now, again, on YouTube, I've been demonstrating it for 9 years. That's just YouTube, right? And now I've got to ask, who is going to help me? And within this culture, the culture of constructive criticism we've got is at best irrelevant to that problem and its solution. So again, in some of this stuff, you don't have to be a genius, So look, let's say Spain is a bad idea. Let's say, I don't know, Melissa is in Spain today, all right? She's in Spain because I wanted her to investigate the possibility that she and I will live in Spain for the rest of our lives. Okay, what if Spain is a bad idea? What the fuck is plan B? Dude, I need help. Do you have to be a genius? Like, okay, you know what? Publishing my book, maybe you've got to be a genius. Illustrating my book, maybe you've got to be a genius. Participating with me in doing a podcast, maybe you've got to be a genius. Cooperating with me in making a documentary film, maybe you've got to be a genius. The kind of help I'm asking for, where I say, I have to leave this town. I have to stop living in this apartment. I only ended up trapped here because of these bizarre circumstances during coronavirus. Okay, I've got to move, and I've got to move now, and I need help. I don't think you need to be a genius to help me. And I do think that part of the problem is all you people know how to fucking do is gossip and criticize. Because yes, that's a culture we had before the internet, but the internet has made it far worse. Yeah. So I'm catching up with your comments. If you guys have something intelligent to say it now. Buggy Proc, who's a longtime viewer of the channel, says, quote, Eisel, I'm just happy you don't do analysis like Penguin Zero or Penguin Zio. I think they call him Penguin Zero. He's just a standard YouTube commentary channel, and he panders to stereotypical rebellious teenagers. But here's the thing. If I imitated Penguin Zero, I would fail, right? And again, it's hard to search for this. Like, it's just not something you can Google easily. How many YouTube channels in the past 5 years have imitated Penguin Zero? I think he's been around for more than 5 years. Thousands. Like, he has thousands of imitators, and more than 99% fail, right? There were people who imitated my channel and failed. I remember one channel that imitated me and was way more successful than me. That's also happened. But within a specific topic like veganism, it's easy to Google, and see how many failures there are for every one success. But there are other people who produce content that's basically identical to Penguin Zero, like it's of equal quality, same style, same sense of humor, and it's neither more nor less pandering to teenagers. But the vast majority will fail. Now, again, just to give a simple example, let's say you have a female friend who's beautiful, and you say to her, "Oh, look, you're beautiful. Why don't you start a YouTube channel where you play video games? Because here's an example of a YouTuber who made millions of dollars just being a beautiful woman who plays video games with the camera." So again, you guys can think there are a lot of examples of that. There are women who have become multimillionaires just sitting and playing video games on camera while being beautiful. Yeah, okay. But for every one example that's a success, do you know how many failures there are? Now, in our culture, people think about music this way: rock music, rap music. But for whatever reason, people don't think about YouTube this way yet. And again, so just mention this briefly. YouTube is esoteric, okay? But it's also involuted and internally self-referential. So one of the criticisms I've received, again, not every month, maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, I've received this, like, depends from year to year. Once or twice a year, I've received this criticism. There are people who say to me that I'm deluded because I think my YouTube channel is way better known than it is within each of these categories. Now, I have 9 years of experience in this game. The people offering me these criticisms have 0 experience. Guys, not everybody in vegan activism knows me, but like, I've been rolling heavy 9 years. In terms of vegans who speak English, like, again, like, we can kind of go through a list. Very often when people meet me face to face in conversation, they're surprised. I'm like, oh yeah, like, I know that guy. I've talked to him. Again, whether it's Facebook messages or whatever, but like, yeah, a huge percentage of people interested in vegan activism who use the internet, who are on YouTube at all, yes, they know me. Yes, they know my work. And again, I have 9 years of experience of confirming that, sometimes directly talking to the person, but sometimes also, like, a friend of mine will say they were at a conference and they met this other guy, some other famous YouTuber or famous vegan influencer, and they saw this guy talking about me. Like, oh yeah, this guy was talking about you at this dinner party, at this conference. You hear back about these things indirectly. So I just mentioned it's not a delusion. One that surprised me, so that's veganism as an example. One that surprised me was the category of polyglot YouTubers. So people who do language education and who specifically promote the polyglot lifestyle. I was amazed to discover, and I've now heard this back from many, many people. It's like, dude, everyone knows you. Like, everyone who's a content creator, like big and small, they all know your work. And now I've heard that back from enough people. And again, it's involuted, it's self-referential, these things are connected. My videos on that topic have a very small number of views, but guess who's watching them? Other polyglot language education YouTubers, right? So, kind of end of story. This is my point. The significance of this for me is not to boast. The point isn't that I have some great level of accomplishment. The point is that when you've been doing this at the level of success I have been, which is a kind of intermediate level of success, it's not highly successful, but it's not a total failure. When you've been doing it for 9 years, right, then I know, okay, the potential colleagues I could have already been disclosed. There's no hope that I'm going to meet and collaborate with a wonderful person within atheism, a wonderful person within veganism, a wonderful person within language education, polyglot, YouTube, this category, right? I'm not making the claim that I'm famous amongst atheist YouTubers, right? That's not my claim. My point is that I have been doing this long enough with enough kind of depth of mutual awareness between content creators, right? That there's no hope that I'm going to put it this way. There's no hope Jacqueline Glenn is going to collaborate with me on a YouTube video. And there's no hope that there's someone else like Jacqueline Glenn, but even better, like at a higher level of intellectual erudition, who's going to collaborate with me. And that's not just true in atheism. It's not just true in veganism. It's not just true in language education, right? Think about sobriety. I've made YouTube videos talking about the importance of quitting marijuana, the importance of not taking antidepressants like Prozac, this type of medication. I've talked about alcohol, drugs, sobriety. Do you think there's some YouTuber, you know what I mean? Do you think there's someone, okay, what can I say, someone like Jacqueline Glenn, someone like the Amazing Atheist? There's someone who's going to say, wow, this is a guy I need to talk to, this guy I need to work with. No. So, I mean, even something like that, which is in some ways very narrow and esoteric, But in some ways, it's about a topic that impacts 100% of the world's population. It's a huge topic, right? How many people are activists in relation to sobriety, in relation specifically to debunking psychiatric medications, antidepressants? So, right? It's like each one of these, there's only a small number of people doing the language education polyglot thing. It's a small number of people who care about this issue, small number of people who care about that issue. And I am not bragging that I'm famous. I'm telling you I need help. This is a desperate cry for help. And there is nothing to hope for under any of these headings. Like, I have already exhausted the incredibly limited talent pool of other vegans who could even have a fucking conversation with me, let alone actually help me in some way, and so on for all the other categories that I've been in. Now, look, just to give two counterexamples, again, this is part of nihilism. I argue against my own position. What if learning Spanish opens up a whole new world to me? Like, I start making YouTube videos in Spanish. I start speaking Spanish every day. I will meet new people. And currently, a very small percentage of my viewers speak Spanish. So that's true. Now, that would also be true of Russian or something. You could take the optimistic view. You know what, Eisel? Stop everything you're doing in English. Start making YouTube videos in Spanish, and you're going to reach a whole new audience and have new friends and new enemies and new colleagues. That's just literally true. I can start doing all my broadcasting in Spanish, and there are enough millions of people who speak Spanish. It is inevitable I will make new friends and new enemies and new colleagues through Spanish. But with that example aside, just another example. I made many videos talking about the history of the American Constitution, American politics. I made many videos talking about Bernie Sanders. Even something like that, right? There's nothing to be hoped for. It's not like you can say to me, well, Eisel, if you really double down and work seriously on politics of this kind, that's going to open the door for something positive in your life. We are past the point of hoping that some door is going to open positive in my life. And that's the most basic premise here of my desperate cry for help. I'm asking for help. I'm not asking for constructive criticism. And I don't think any of this constructive criticism, I don't think improving my editing, I don't think improving my lighting, I don't think using a more expensive microphone, more expensive camera, more expensive lighting, I don't think anything like that is going to open the kind of doors I'm looking for. But yeah, look, I am interested in doing things that are different. I'm interested in giving up on this YouTube format entirely, this kind of confessional YouTube format, and doing stand-up comedy. I'm interested in giving up on this YouTube format and writing and performing original satirical music, songs, rap songs. You guys have seen me do it. I'm interested in giving up on this and doing stand-up comedy live. I'm interested in giving up on this and doing formal filmmaking. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a way I can even make $5 out of filmmaking anymore. It's the economics of filmmaking. It's really discouraging now. And also the whole education system for that. Actually going to university to study cinematography, there's been a lot of bad news. But everything I found out about stand-up comedy is also bad news. I've had bad news under every fucking heading. But yeah, I am willing to challenge myself and take on new directions. I'm also willing to go to the gym and get back to doing 300 push-ups and bench pressing 300 pounds. And again, I did that in the middle of my coronavirus period. I was afraid it was going to kill me, so I stopped. I'm not coughing today, maybe like today or tomorrow. Maybe this is the start of me going back to the gym. I don't mind. I can double the amount of muscle mass I have. I proved that recently in my mid-40s. I can still get back to being a beefcake and punching holes in walls or whatever. What the fuck good is that going to do me? So I can be a 45-year-old guy who can do 300 push-ups and bench press 300 pounds. Again, maybe that leads to something really positive. But compared to learning Spanish and doing all my videos in Spanish, it's really hard to construe anything positively. And again, I'm sorry, but the clock is ticking here. Right now, there's no rationale for me even staying in this apartment. If I'm going to learn Latin, I can talk myself into studying Latin at the university here and staying in this apartment. Like, where am I going to live? What am I going to do? And again, I'm sorry, I just have to say this again. What I want to do in my life, what matters to me, I can't do alone. I can't. And I couldn't even publish my book alone. I wish I could fucking work with a real publisher. And again, I'm not saying this to point the finger at the audience, but nobody in this audience was connected to the publishing industry. Nobody could help me in this way either. So such is life. Um, so Florian says, Florian, I don't remember you. Maybe you used a different name on YouTube. Anyway, so this particular Florian, I don't remember you. Florian says, quote, it shocked me that friends of mine who had interest in topics you discussed had never heard of you. Their filter bubbles are just too strong. Well, Florian, I just remind you, some people do not use YouTube at all. Some people do not use the internet at all. And like when I go to certain types of events, like when I show up at a vegan event, I can walk into the room and you can feel it. Oh, all these people watch YouTube, like they're part of the internet YouTube world. And this, and this person, they don't watch anything on YouTube. Like they just watch normal television, or they only use the internet to pay their phone bills. Like, some people just use the internet to pay bills and do their taxes and for nothing else. Often I'll walk into a room and it's like, okay, all these people know me and all these people don't. And as you can imagine, that's not based on age. It's not just like, oh, the young people know me and the old people don't. No, because there are some young people who don't do YouTube, and there are some old people who spend all the time on YouTube. So yeah. But anyway, Florian, I wouldn't assume that's what it is. Anyway, there's other comments about Joe Rogan. Yeah, I forced myself to listen to one of Joe Rogan's interviews with Kanye West. Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, so Sam says that he doesn't think Joe Rogan is pandering, that Joe Rogan is just an extremely average person with an average person's worldview. Sam, I think you are underestimating the importance of drug addiction. I don't see Joe Rogan as an average person. I think he's an old drug addict. And, how different is that from an average person? I think it's different in a significant way. I've just been sick for several months. It has been really hard for me to get reading done when I was sick. I was forcing myself to. I did read several books, but the amount of reading per month, the amount of learning per month that a recovered drug addict can do, whether they're a former cocaine addict or, in Joe Rogan's case, the drugs he admits to using are so-called psychedelic drugs. Um, you know. So Percival mentions some YouTuber I could reach out to. So I want to say this also. Guys, if there are other YouTubers who should know me, that's your job to let them know. The way I collaborated with Unnatural Vegan before she decided she hates me, there were several fans of her channel who were donating money to her who said to her, look, you got to talk to this guy. You got to work with this guy. Like, she's got to talk to me. They were impressed with me. Now, again, those people might have lied to me, but to my knowledge, some of those people wrote to me and talked to me. They said, hey, that they were a donor and supporter of Unnatural Vegan, and that they had really told Unnatural Vegan that I was a talented person she should work with. They got in touch with Unnatural Vegan and said to her, hey, look, you have this, this, and this in common with this guy. I'm sure she regrets that she ever listened. I'm sure she hates me very deeply, or hates me very intensely. Perhaps the hatred is shallow, but it's very intense. So be it. But I just say, there was a music YouTuber who was vegan, and I remember one of my fans. He had a campaign trying to get this music YouTuber to interview me. But if you don't do things like that, if you don't reach out to other YouTubers and say, "Hey, this guy is a Mazard," how else is it going to happen? But yeah, I think that is the role of the audience. It's not my role to get in touch that way. It has to be members of the audience who, in effect, endorse my work. I bring in new viewers and also put me in touch with other content creators. So I am still catching up with your comments, guys. So Javier says, um, some part of the puzzle is that the majority feel threatened by working with me or being interviewed with me. Nobody wants to learn, less so do they want to learn about their own ignorance. Um, so Javier has known my channel for many years, unless it's a different Javier, but I believe this is the same Javier. Javier would be delighted if I start doing all my YouTube videos in Spanish. I think maybe you'd hate it because my accent would be so bad. I can't stand listening to this guy talking Spanish. Maybe it would be a disaster. Maybe it would be a nice change of pace too. Nice little disaster for a change. Okay, Javier. I really do not believe that's the problem. So, okay, just to be clear, Javier's suggestion is people find me intellectually intimidating, or they find me threatening, or they don't want to have their own ignorance exposed. The problem is money, fame, power, success, sex. That's what motivates these people, nothing else. So if I were offering them those things, they'd be very happy to be humiliated on my channel. They would not feel intimidated, or it wouldn't be a problem. And I think you see that throughout YouTube. So the problem is the scarcity of talent, the scarcity of anyone who's motivated by anything else other than those things. And yeah, I mean, I'm not really planning to change my tactics. I mean, it's not like I'm going to start offering people. I'm not going to start pandering to those baser motives, no matter what scale I'm at in terms of success or what have you. So just to fill that out. Okay, politics of China. Why is it there's never been a single person to collaborate with me in making a podcast or YouTube video talking about the politics of China? Atheism. Why is there, so let's say specifically, atheism and the critique of Buddhism. Why has there never been a single person to collaborate with me in making a YouTube video, podcast, so on and so forth? Now again, antidepressants, Prozac, like there are many, many interests I have. Why has there never been a single person? It's not this issue, Javier. It's not because they're afraid that they will seem so ignorant if they're on camera with me. It really is just that they want money, fame, power, respect, sex. And, good luck pursuing those things through the discussion of Chinese politics. That's an incredibly hard road to get on, right? But there are some people doing it. There are some people trying to get rich and famous and trying to get laid and trying to get power and respect through exactly those things. And that's most of what you see playing out on the internet again and again and again. And by the way, the most generous people, the most supportive people are the video game people, because those are the people who are committed to doing this as a hobby. For them, it is truly a hobby, and they are not overwhelmed by those motives. So both the people who are just like retro video game enthusiasts and the people who are talking about quitting video games, those have probably been the nicest people to me on the internet, the most appreciative and most friendly. And it's a real contrast. It's a real contrast to everyone else, including my fellow vegans. So there's an interesting comment. Someone says that they found my channel through the algorithm where I was talking about Black Lives Matter, BLM. I thought all those videos were banned, not just shadow banned, but like really banned. So that's nice to hear. It's nice to hear someone discovered me through my critique of Black Lives Matter. I think this is the first person to ever say that to me. Maybe the second. I remember one other guy who specifically discovered me. He was a black guy, and he discovered my channel and appreciated it because of what I said about Black Lives Matter and what I said about the Central Park Five. Central Park 5 video, I kind of have a small audience who discovered me through that video specifically. Yeah. So the same person says that I've impacted their life positively. They quit playing video games. They got their first job, first car, and started becoming more independent. It took only a week after quitting video games. Well, that's wonderful. I wish someone in my audience could do for me what I've done for you. I wish there were one person in my audience who could positively impact my life that way. But maybe 100 of you or 500 of you all together, maybe you could impact my life. But alas, no. So someone who I assume is a new viewer of the channel, someone named Shelf. Welcome to the audience, Shelf. Shelf asks, quote, where is the line drawn with veganism? How far down the line does it have to be before an animal's consent is not an issue? Shelf, my book costs $1. So please do buy and read the book. But in Europe, it's €1. In the United States, I think it's $1.08. So if you get it from Amazon, I can't charge a lower price than that. All right. It's $1. And it's short. It's not going to waste your time. And it's very passionately written. It's very entertaining. So anything you want to know about veganism, read the book. But to answer your question directly, this is a non-issue. The question you're asking never needs to be answered. The challenge we have is, in plain English, eliminating slaughterhouses, eliminating the mass breeding, feeding, raising, and then slaughter of cows, pigs, chickens, sheep, so on and so forth. That is the challenge facing vegans in the 21st century. So the kind of question you're asking, ultimately, it's laughable in that context. But read my book, and obviously, there's a certain type of personality that really genuinely wants to debate about the arrangement of the deck chairs on the Titanic. There's certain people, they really want to debate things that don't matter. I am not that kind of guy. I want to roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty and change the world. And I just recognize there are some issues that will never matter outside of the context of a chalkboard, kind of purely academic, purely hypothetical debate. And, sorry, just to give you, go read my book. I mean, but also you can watch my YouTube videos. I'm one of the vegans who just says completely openly, it will always be necessary occasionally to kill wild bears. I grew up in Canada. I don't endorse hunting. I don't think it should be a sport. I don't endorse eating bear meat or anything like that. But if you live in Canada, every so often someone is going to have to shoot a bear. We have to kill bears. We have to kill rats. There are all kinds of animals we still have to kill. But the enormous challenge facing us is the multi-billion animal per year meat industry. That is the challenge facing veganism in the 21st century, not these kind of hypothetical scenarios. Well, so we have some comments here about Jacqueline Glenn and her significance. When a snowball rolls down a hill, the outer layers of snow that accumulate, making the snowball bigger and bigger, the outer layers of snow protect and preserve the smaller snowball that began at its inner core. Someone like Jacqueline Glenn is the opposite. She's a snowball. It's grown and grown as it rolled down the hill, but it's hollow at its core. What she is missing at her core in the center is precisely what she began with. So paradoxically, she's a snowball that's melting from the inside out. I don't have a better allegory for that. Well, guys, thank you for your contribution. It's rare that I get this much conversation. We have another invitation for me to criticize Cosmic Skeptic. That'll just have to be a subject for another video. Yeah. So I just mentioned we had two different viewers in the audience who are black. I believe you're both African American specifically. That's always one of the strange ironies. You guys don't take this on directly. I just posted this on my Instagram. People accuse me of being racist against black people, being racist against African Americans, and I'm very open actually about what my prejudices are. But I'm actually biased in favor of black people. I'm quite pro African American and pro black, and wrote a 600-page book about it, so on and so forth. Um, but I do have my prejudices. It just happens that's not one of them. Okay, guys. But anyway, thank you very much. We have 51 people in the audience and 51 thumbs up. I really do appreciate that. I have read all of your comments, even though I didn't reply to every single one. I want to close by saying this. Myanmar was a huge part of my life for years. Myanmar is the country formerly known as Burma. Okay, if just one person had been kind and engaged and supportive and helpful to me, I would be a scholar of Myanmar to this day. My YouTube channel, probably 50% of it would be about the politics of Myanmar, the struggle for democracy in Myanmar. If just one person had been kind and encouraging and supportive, right? I could be completely fluent in the Burmese language by now. It's a relatively easy language. Or I could have worked on one of the minority languages of the Myanmar, like Shan, Shan. The Shan language is very closely related to Laotian, which is a language I already worked on for years. But there are many other languages within Myanmar I could have worked on. And there have been specific people, some of them university professors, some of them in the humanitarian field, some of them political, where I really asked them to be supportive. I really asked them to be kind. There's one professor in particular I'll just mention. I knew him for years, and I knew him face to face, not just by email. And I remember I wrote to him at one point. It was kind of past the breaking point with him. I said, "Look, this." So I wrote to him when I was living in Yunnan, right on the border with Myanmar. I said, "Look, you've known me for years. You know exactly what kind of intellectual background I have. That I've already done Pali, that I've already done Laotian, already worked in Thailand, Laos, Cambodia. You know who I am politically. Like, I'm not a communist, which is a big deal in that field. You don't want to deal with communists. You don't want to deal with anarchists. Like, all this stuff. You know what I offer. You know what I bring to the table. You know my work ethic. He'd read my publications. I don't remember him saying they were brilliant, but I remember him praising these essays I'd done in the research. And I was like, okay, you know what I'm capable of. You know what I'm willing to do. You know what I'm here to do. Like, at that time, I'm living on the border between China and Myanmar. All right. And I said, and I can't get you to recommend a dictionary. I'm writing to you asking which dictionary I should use. Like, and I'm sorry, that kind of specialized thing. Who the fuck are you going to ask? Like, you can't say, oh, go on Reddit and that. No, you need to talk to a specialist. You need to talk to an expert. It's like, I can't get any help from you. I can't get any support from you. And again, this is a good example because the support, it doesn't cost money. It takes time. It takes effort. You need to know someone who will help you. Okay. I never found that one person. So Myanmar is nothing to me today. Shan State is nothing to me today. Northern Myanmar, all the things I could have devoted my time and energy to, and that we could be talking about in this YouTube video today, they are dust. They're gone. They're dead to me. And I lost years of my life pouring out the talent and energy I had to try to create a basis to work in that field and to make a difference in the world in terms of politics, in terms of humanitarian work, to try to make the world a better place in that area. And it's all for nothing because there wasn't one person who would help me. And I think I've explained to you what I mean by help. It doesn't mean giving me $500, give me $1,000. It doesn't. It doesn't mean giving me $1 million either, by the way. I needed help, not constructive criticism, help. Nobody did it for me. And the window of opportunity for that example is probably at least 15 years. Maybe it's like 20 years in which one person could have helped me. All right. Now, at the very beginning of this video, I used the example of economics, and that's a much shorter window of opportunity. I could have become an economist, and we could have a YouTube video today where 50% of my videos are talking about economics. I do still talk about economics, but less often than that, right? There was a window of opportunity in which I needed help. I needed someone to come into my life and care, right? Even if that was just telling me which books to get out of the library. And I could have had a whole different career and a whole different life in economics, okay? I am in a period of crisis right now, and I keep saying it to you openly. Crisis, crisis, crisis. Desperate cry for help means desperate cry for help. And the nature of that crisis is I'm standing at a crossroads and I don't know where any of the fucking roads lead. Okay? I know which roads I've given up on. I've given up on ecology. I've given up on vegan activism. I've given up on Chinese. For how many years did I ask for one person out of this audience to take the time to send me fucking Facebook messages in Chinese? Do you know how much that helps? Like, for someone like me to have one person who will talk to me on Skype once in a while, who will send me Facebook messages back and forth in Chinese, who will help me practice the language, or who will correct my writing. Like, I write an article, who will point out to me what I'm doing wrong in the article in Chinese. To have one person to help you study Chinese. I never had that one person. And guys, I know you think I'm bragging when I'm saying this. I'm not bragging. What I did get were women trying to have sex with me. All right? That did happen. And I think you can imagine how a woman in that position can use this and say like, oh, hey, well, I know a little bit of Chinese, but that's not what it's about. They can use that as an open door to try to get into bed with me. All right? And believe it or not, it's not the help I'm looking for. It's just not. You know, I keep saying talent is scarce. Pussy is not scarce. Pussy is fucking everywhere. Remind me to make a video titled Pussy is Everywhere. I think Sam especially would appreciate that video, by the way. All right. Okay. But my point is this. There is a different person I could be today if one person had come into my life and helped me in relation to economics. If one person had come into my life and helped me in relation to Myanmar, Burmese, Shan, those things. If one person had come into my life and helped me about Chinese, about Cambodia, right? But these are kind of big, obvious, well-defined topics, all right? It's not so easy to define what I'm trying to do in terms of filmmaking, in terms of book publishing, in terms of creative writing. It's not so easy to define what my future could be or should be, what kind of person I could be 5 years from now, because I'm no longer saying to you that I'm an aspiring leader of the vegan movement, and here is exactly what I need you to help me do, right? I've given up on being a leader of the vegan movement, and I'm saying to you instead, I'm standing at a fucking crossroads. And I have no idea where I'm going. But I need your help because I need, in short, all the help I can get. My computer just went to sleep, ruining my exit. Guys, thank you for being here. 51 people in the audience, 51 thumbs up. I really do appreciate that there are a lot of you with good intentions, but you're aware that you can't help. I do get messages from people at least every week, but sometimes it's every day. I get messages from people saying they want to help and they can't help. And they feel helpless and hopeless and self-hating. And you know, go ahead, hate yourself. You should be able to help. You should be capable of better than this. And maybe something positive can come out of that self-examination, that self-hatred. Because there are so many people in this audience who know me better than any of my own brothers, than any of my own sisters. And there are so many people in this audience who really care about what I do next in my life. Like, they care whether I now move to Spain and all my YouTube videos are in Spanish, whether I do Spanish politics or American politics. So that's a big difference to you guys. There are people who care about whether I work on ecology and veganism, or whether I work on sobriety and psychiatric medication, or all these different things that could do. There are people for whom it really matters whether or not I give up on Chinese entirely or double down on and work really hard on Chinese. There are probably some of you care about whether or not I do Latin and ancient Greek. Probably. But not one of you cares enough to even send me a fucking email. Nobody is actually trying to help. And help is exactly what I need. And if you can't help, if you know you can't help, if you know you don't have what it takes to help, I get it. I sympathize. But don't let that be the end of the discourse. That has to be the beginning of you asking yourself a question and coming up with some new answers. I don't think that for you or for me, that can be the end.